Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Diggory, and I'm president of Singers in Accord Choral Ensemble. On behalf of our entire organization, I'd like to welcome you to this evening's conversation with Karen Brunssen. Singers in Accord is beginning its 12th season as a singer-led, singer-managed ensemble. With no permanent artistic director, we as singers select and collaborate with different conductors for each project to give a distinctive experience to our ensemble of singers as well as to our audience. To date, we have collaborated with 18 different conductors. Tonight is our second webinar in a series we call Conversations in Accord. These sessions are opportunities to learn more about choral art and to better know some of the incredible people that make this art happen: the conductors, the composers, and the teachers of singing. On November 17th, we welcome one of our region's most distinguished choral conductors, Sigrid Johnson, in a conversation about her career and her thoughts on developing choral tone, literature for female choral ensembles, expressive singing, and a host of other topics. Our moderators for that evening will be singer Shel Smith and poet David Bankson. Also in November, Singers in Accord will be releasing its first virtual choir recording, Let Us Not Become Weary, written by local composer Ben Cornelis. Stay tuned for more details. As always, we appreciate your engagement with Singers in Accord, and should you find our work worthy of your support, please visit the Support Us page on our website. Later in tonight's conversation, you will be able to ask Ms. Brunssen questions. Please feel free to submit any and all questions you have, and we'll get as many answered as possible. You can submit your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to introduce our moderators for this evening. Penny Meyer, who is a singer and original founding member of Singers in Accord, and Jerry Rubino. And Penny, would you do the honor of introducing Jerry?
I would love to. Thank you, Dan. And good evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. Jerry Rubino is known throughout the United States for his work as a conductor, pianist, choral clinician, and arranger. He worked for 23 seasons with the Dale Worland Singers as associate conductor, director of special projects and music education, arranger, pianist, and singer. Jerry's conducting and teaching credits include honors choirs in Australia, Taiwan, Hawaii, and Europe, the Los Angeles Master Chorale and the California State Summer Arts Workshops, and Northwestern, Augsburg, and Carleton Colleges in Minnesota. He is currently the conductor of Voices of Experience, a staff conductor with the Minnesota Chorale, and serves as Minister of Music at Spirit of Hope United Methodist Church in Golden Valley, Minnesota. His music editing credits include extensive work with Hal Leonard and Oxford University Press. He is an active member of the American Choral Directors Association, Chorus America, and ASCAP. Jerry holds degrees in piano, music education, and conducting from Temple University and the University of Minnesota. I might add that Jerry is a very special person in the Singers in Accord family. He is one of only a small group of conductors with whom Singers in Accord has collaborated more than once, and Jerry has the singular distinction of being the very first conductor of Singers in Accord back in 2009 with our Grateful Gatherings concert. And we are grateful for this gathering this evening. Jerry, once again, welcome back, and thank you for moderating tonight. The floor is yours.
Penny, I told Jan that she didn't need to read that whole thing, so she must not have passed that on to you, but thank you for sharing. It sounds like I don't have time to sleep, but I'm grateful to stay busy. And it's such a highlight and an honor to have been the first guest conductor with that group. I told Jan that the recording we have of If Music Be the Food of Love by David Dachau, I think is the finest one out on YouTube or wherever they put those things. So very proud of our work together. I'm so excited to meet and to hear all about Karen. Karen, I'm not going to read your whole bio because it's all over the internet. And if everybody wants to know all of your accomplishments, they can go read it. But I will say this much. She is an associate professor of music at Northwestern University in Illinois, where she teaches voice and is co-chair of music performance. She is a frequent teacher, clinician, and adjudicator for organizations literally everywhere, colleges and universities throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. And these specific things are what I'm most intrigued about. Her presentations chronicle how changes in respiration, vibration, and resonance impact realistic, age-appropriate expectations for singing throughout a lifetime. Singing throughout a lifetime is the core value that we have for Voices of Experience, the choir that I direct at McPhail. So I can't wait to hear her views on this. Of course, because of her expertise, she has written a book called The Evolving Singing Voice, Changes Across the Lifespan, and has presented at NATS, National Association for the Teachers of Singing, Opera America, ACDA, and Chorus America, among other places. Did you just finish your 2-year stint as president of NATS? Is that right?
Right.
So now you can breathe a little bit more. And she received her degrees from Luther College and did graduate work at Yale University and Kent State. I am so excited to hear what you have to say, Karen, and we'll all applaud you and welcome you to our event tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Jerry. I told Jerry I'm just tickled to get to be in the same pictures with him because I know so much about him, actually. It's just really exciting. So so as I talk, Jerry and Penny might interrupt me, and that's okay if they do, because we have agreed to do that. If they have some point they think that should be made more, or whatever they want to do is going to be fine with me. So this book that I wrote, and I'm just going to hold it up. I mean, so there it is. And it really is, it's not meant to be hard and difficult to read. There's plenty of science in it, but it's also peppered with the human spirit and the regular thing that we do, which is get older, and our voices get older. And we're blessed if we get to be older. And so what I'm going to talk about today actually had its roots at, I was in Nordic choir at Luther with Weston Noble. I sang at his funeral, and he spoke at my wedding 43, almost 44 years ago. But one night, there's a wonderful conductor, Edith Copley, who is at Northern Arizona State. And she was one of my best friends. And it was our turn to do the entertainment before the dinner or after dinner. And so we did one called The Changing Voice, and I was all the voices. So I started with being a little 2-year-old who had her thumb in her mouth, and she cried and sang with her thumb in her mouth. And then we went to that I was a toothless 7-year-old and, saying, Jesus loved me, this I know. And I used blackjack gum on my teeth to cover up my teeth, so it really looked fun. And then after that, I went junior high and I sang really soft and looked at people like this, ugh. And then I found my chest voice and I started singing in musicals and I, really found it. And then all of a sudden I went to Luther College and I found my head voice and a vibrato. And so then I started singing Carl Romeo Bain, but with quite a big break in it. And then finally, I thought I was getting more mature and I auditioned for college or a grad school. And this is all pretend, of course. And then finally, I was a big mature singer at the age of 33. That's when we ended my career at 33 in this presentation. And now since then, I've found out that there's life beyond 33. And I am now, I will tell you, right now, I am 66. And my whole thing is that the voice is amazing from the moment we're born with the first birth cry. And then it changes really a lot during childhood. And then you're into your teens. And then it's about the time you're For men, it does about 20, they hit their peak of their testosterone, and then it starts going down about 1% a year to the age of 70. For women, we're a little sooner, maybe 17 or so, that we reach some sort of mature level. We'll talk about this in a second. And then that we stay kind of the same or similar, but we're still aging. Our muscles are changing, everything's changing. You'll see that in a minute. And then all of a sudden we go, boom, and we all of a sudden have gone through menopause, and then it's a different thing for us. And you can take hormone therapy if you want to, and so we're going to just sort of start out though with, it is just amazing that, and I'm going to go to my share screen now. There are 3 things that we intersect with all the time in our singing lives. And so singing is an intersection of respiration, vibration, and resonance, not necessarily in that order. And sometimes it's all out of order. Sometimes if you fix resonance, you've fixed respiration. If you fix vibration, you've fixed resonance and respiration. And that's how that goes. So we're going to sort of take a look at things here. So we're going to start with this is the spine. And the upper, I think you can see my little thing here. The upper 7, that's what goes into your head. And when you were a baby, this was all kind of crunched together and you didn't have a neck. And your larynx was actually at about the 2nd vertebrae. Then as you age, the throat gets longer, you start having a neck. It ends up around 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And I think that's really interesting. But then as we continue, this is the, let's go back and see what that is, the thoracic spine. So you can see that at 3 years old, how small it is, 10 years old, 16 years old. You can also see the curve of how things work with that. And that's 12 of our spine that do that. Okay, then you can look at what's connected to the spine, and that is our ribs. And as a young child, you can see that they can collapse more. Oops, so sorry, we'll get there once more. I'm ruining this, okay? They can go down more and they can go up more too. There's a lot of rotation that can happen from the spine in the ribs. And we'll see some other things. And then in older people, as you get older, you start to feel like you're barrel chested, but you're no fatter. One of the reasons for that is that the rib cage doesn't have as much rotation, can't go down as far as it did before. And now it's sort of stuck out there like that. Well, that's actually not a bad thing at all for singing as an adult. Another thing about the breathing thing is this is such a cool picture. So we have in the center, you can see the trachea, and it branches out to 2 bronchioles. And then from there, when you're in uterine, that's what it is. When you're inside as a fetus, your lungs begin with the 1 trachea sort of, and then the 2 branches, and then they branch out by 2, then those branch out by 2, then those by 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And you have generations of these things that are going to have little things in the end called alveoli. And those alveoli are what transfer the gases, the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. And if you're really, really tall, you might have 750 million of those alveoli, because your lungs, they grow according to how tall you are. So if you're kind of shorter, you have less. So if you're petite, for instance, as a baby, by the way, you had 20 million alveoli around there, okay? And then as you grow, it grows, and the number of alveoli at the ends of all of those branches also increases. And so through the generations of the growth of the 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, you're going to have a lot of air exchange happening because of more alveoli. And here we can see the muscles, that's the only way that we can get our air to go out. We have to use muscles around all of this. But as a baby, your muscles aren't the same. And so I want to just show you this picture. So a baby, their ribs go out. And as an adult, the ribs go in. And if you're sneaking a look at me up there too, I'm giving you some little demonstrations. But it's really interesting because you can see then the red part of it, that's the diaphragm. And sometimes we hear people say support from your diaphragm. You don't really support from your diaphragm because it helps in other ways, but not by support. So when it decides that it's going to go clunk down, then that's when that muscle is contracting. And then as you're singing, it's sort of going, it's relaxing. But in a baby, you actually do have to use it for those purposes of support. It's a whole different thing. Now we go down to the vibration. And in the vibration happens within the larynx. So on the left, you see a mature larynx. You can see right here, this leaf thing right here, that's called the epiglottis. Here's the hyoid bone. Here's the thyroid cartilage. Here's the cricothyroid cartilage here. Now over here, the infant's is not bigger than the mature one. It really should be about 1/3 or 1/4 the size that it is to really show. But you can see that the proportions are completely different within even this. You know, the proportions of a baby are completely different, even of a child, from an adult. So we don't grow just like everything grows at once. If we did, my head would be about 3/4 of me, you know, but we're going to grow from having our head being like 1/4 of us as a baby to other things grow more, and our head ends up being about 7. You have 7 hands is what they say, and this is 1/7 of our head is 1/7 of our entire body. Well, all of this kind of non-linear, non-symmetrical growth happens throughout our body, even at the laryngeal level. And if you think about cartilages, if you take your ear and crunch it, go like this, I'm 66, so it hurts. But when I remember babysitting and I would hold the baby and their little ears would just fold right up because their cartilage was soft. It wasn't hard like mine is now. Well, our larynx makes that same kind of difference. So in this one on the right, in the infant, that cartilage is real mushy. It's soft. Over here in the mature, it's going towards bone. And actually, I have one picture in the book that shows how things, it's called ossification, how it becomes harder. And this makes a difference in singing. So for instance, when you're about 35, 36, you have a little bit of hardness, more hardness coming into the mature laryngeal structure. And that actually is a good, healthy support system so that it can take the kind of breath that you're going to send to it. Which is quite different from others, from when you were younger, much different. Now, we're going to go to the vocal folds themselves. So we've gone inside the larynx, and I hope you've seen vocal folds. I'll show you some in a minute. Notice this structure, it has layers, and they call that lamina. Okay, so that's like a laminated floor, is a layer on your floor. So we start with, on the outside, we have this epithelium around here. And it's not a lot of cells thick, and it's after puberty that you get a 3rd layer of epithelium. And the only beings who have 3rd layers of epithelium are well, all animals can have an epithelium. That's not quite accurate, but it's close. But only the 3rd layer of epithelium happens to human beings after puberty. So that's an interesting thing. But everything within here too changes. So we're seeing here an adult one and the layers, and this is not the colors that they are, but it helps to see the layers. So this right here is sort of gelatinous. And then this right here is sort of collagenous. It's a deeper layer. And this in here is the vocalis muscle. And the vocalis muscle, I missed one, I'm sorry. And this is more collagen. This gets a little bit more stiff. And this in here is the muscle. And that vocalis muscle does not truly act as a muscle until after puberty again. And so the vocal growth from birth through teenage times is incredibly huge. And that's just in the vocal folds, which are about the size of my pinky, the nail on my pinky. So it's pretty amazing. Now let's take a look here. If you were to look down a laryngoscope, this is what you would see in a baby. It's very hard to intube, to put, you know, an air hose down in a baby because, and this is their epiglottis, and it actually doesn't go down when they're a baby. It takes a while to do that. It's floppy and it's omega shaped, and it actually can touch the velum from above, which is the nasal port. It's the back of the soft palate, that little hanging down thing in the back of the throat touches this, and that's why babies can breathe and suckle at the same time. So that view changes a great deal. Now this is a teenage girl, and you can see that there's a little gap here, and air does come through, and that's referred to as the mutational chink. And sometimes people try to close that off or call it a problem. It's actually nature. And so nature probably will solve the problem. However, sometimes a teenager will continue to be breathy, or they might have been doing something like singing nasal instead, or singing real chesty instead because they didn't want to sing breathy. So they're compensating, and that can be a technical issue that has to be undone. But the best thing is to just know this is a situation that once nature takes hold, again, this is not, everything's not happening symmetrically. So this developed first up here, and these muscles down here that will bring it to complete closure still have to do their growing and their maturing. And so we accept that. Then we get to, these are good old, wonderful adult larynxes looking at their vocal folds. And you can, supposedly one is a man and one is a woman. And frankly, you can't really tell which is which. I will make the point that women's vocal folds are smaller than men's. Women's laryngeal structure is smaller than males. And that is just predetermined it's determined intrauterine. So it's when you're a fetus that those things change. And it's like at about the 6th week that you are conceived, after conception. And here we can see some aging vocal folds. And this is somebody who's probably in their 80s. And you can see there's more vascular activity going on. And over here, right here, you can see that the vocal folds don't want to come together quite as well. There's a gap again, but the gap is different than it was for the one who was the girl who was in puberty. This gap is because the vocal folds are getting lax. There are things that we can do to help that, and sometimes there are not things that we can do to help everything, but you can be better for the effort nonetheless. So you can see how vibration changes through life. Now here we're going to move to resonance. So once you've got the air going up, that trachea goes out of the lungs, those muscles, and let's talk about the mature voice. That the muscles around the larynx, the muscles around the lungs compress against it, which pushes the air out into the bronchioles and up into the trachea. And if you have sufficient subglottal pressure, you're going to get optimal vibration. Then it's right after that, just right above it, that's when it goes into the resonating tube. That tube is an incredible thing. And we need to actually understand it better and better and better. And the female tube is not as long as the male tube, which they do call a vocal tract. Here's another thing that happens. In babies, their jaws are kind of soft. They don't start as hard bone. And then in the child, it turns to bone. And we're talking right now about the mandible, the lower part here. And you can see they also get teeth. First they get their baby teeth, and then they get their adult teeth. And at some point, they have their adult teeth underneath and their baby teeth above. So they have shown skeletons where you can see both sets. And that's very interesting. Then they lose their baby teeth. And here you can see in the adult that their adult teeth are in. And it's when you get to these points that there's a different kind of strategy needed for breath pressure. I'm going to just say it now. When children, as children, their vocal folds, I want to go back to this 1 second. Children, their entire vocal fold as a baby is this gelatinous kind of stuff right here, the entire thing. And so it's real, and they can't make differentiations that they're going to do with these other layers later on. But it's gradually, like 7 months or so, it starts to change to 2 kinds of tissues. A little later, it changes to 3 kinds of tissues. Then as children, those layers define themselves better as to what kind of tissue they are. And then finally, after, as I said before, after puberty, then the muscle comes in as part of it, the thyroarytenoid muscle, also called the vocalis muscle. That comes in, and you can do more with the vocal fold then too. And with that, miraculously, get back to this picture. Let's see. Along with that, the bones in your face have grown, your neck has lengthened, and so you have a much different strategy because your vocal folds can do different things, but the kind of air that they need is different too. Let me explain that. As a child, you could just go, ah, and it came out clear. As an adult, we have to switch to a resistance kind of breath pressure to make our vocal folds work. Fortunately, we're built for that by that time. Young children, you can see their shoulders are small, their ribs are not strong, the muscles between the ribs are not strong, but now ours are stronger and they can hold our ribs out longer, which is how you kind of resist letting breath go out. For children, they would go shoo, and that was the right strategy for them. But now and you can now have more possibilities for resonance and longer phrases. It's quite an amazing thing. This is one of my favorite pictures because I could sit and look at it forever. So let's start here. So looking at the baby at age 6 months, you can see they don't have a neck. It also shows here, you see right there, that white thing that I've got that cross thing on, that is the velum, and that basically touches, if I had the epiglottis here, it would be close to touching it. Pretty quick along the way, along with the vocal folds changing shape, then the neck starts to grow, and then this starts going up and staying up, and the epiglottis is able to fold down the way it's going to later. Here we see that that's starting to happen. You can even see how the spine back here has grown a little bit. And this is 2 years old. Now 7 years old, we're even more. And even the shape of the epiglottis has changed a little bit, or a lot. And it's probably harder and much more, it could do more things. And the larynx, you can't see that on here, but it does start going down. And here it's getting older. We're at 13 and a half years old here. And finally, the mature voice. And look at what a difference in the size of everything once we go through puberty. For men, those changes take until I think until 27 to 32. Things continue to change. We can also talk about how muscles change, but we'll just say that they go from being weaker to being stronger up to adulthood. This is one of the coolest pictures. Last summer, I went to Berlin with a group of pedagogues from NATS, and we went on a pedagogy trip to Berlin and Dresden and Potsdam and Leipzig. This was at the Charité, which is their version of Mayo Clinic. And this is Dr. Dirk Mürbe's finger and arm. And he helped get the instrumentation so that they can take 3D pictures of, this is the vocal tract. This is if they put styrofoam in your mouth. And it went all the way down, and here's your cricothyroid ring. And so this would be the entire, how your throat is. And look at all the little spaces and divots and hills and mountains and stuff in it. And this is where the incredible possibilities of creating sound are changed by our articulators. You'd have to imagine a tongue. This is space, remember? And he could turn this in all directions so that we could see all directions of it. And how different everybody is. No wonder if we have all these different crevices and shapes and stuff. So I think it's really miraculous how you can put all this together, and then it starts to make sense that we're going to change every day of our lives. I know it's a graphic picture, but it makes a great point. When things change, this is probably of a 30-something-year-old young female. This female is like 85. And our bones don't stay as dense. They start losing density because they can't replenish themselves. And so in the left, you see somebody where they're probably 50-50, where if as cells die out, others come in and take their place. And so they stay, just fine. And in an older female, for instance, here, you can see that they don't have as much replacement when things are going to die out. You can even see that the eye socket is bigger. And you can see, we always learn about drop your jaw, let it go down and back. But I can picture somebody in my church choir who her back is a bit hunched over and her jaw juts forward, and it's normal. And we have to understand that. Just as in the young adolescent female, that those vocal folds don't come all the way together. That's normal. That's life. And here you can see that to ask the older female to drop their jaw back and down, well, back and down is relative to your age. Everything is relative to your age in a way, as far as production goes. So then I'm going to go on and just talk about things that you can do that are good for everybody. So we're going to talk a bit about resonance, and one of the things we know about semi-occluded vocal tract, which means how we use our throat. And when I'm full on screen, I'll explain some of that more. And when I work with some of the other singers, I'll get into that more. But I am really excited about all the things we now know about resonance. And I have my own little things that I talk about, that we're going to have an acoustic party in our head. Back around your skull, you have sort of an acoustic aura. I'll talk about semi-occlusion shortly. And format tuning is an amazing thing, how things tune up between different overtones and such. And then the singer's format cluster we'll be getting into also. And then I've put a bunch of semi-occluded exercises that I like. And I like emming, humming. Anything that sort of stops the breath from just blowing out is good. It offers resistance somewhere, or it impedes just an ah. And those are good, very good for causing healthy acoustics. When you go, that's a good thing too, but it's not voiced. So zzz is the voiced version of that. Then also lip and tongue trills, grrr and trrr. And then there's the human kazoo. And I like, that's another way of saying viving. I like the straw. I like the small straws. I don't know if you've seen those, where you sing through a straw. And we'll get to that too. I like a card buzz that I'm going to introduce to someone. And we will talk about a weird exercise with somebody. There are 5 things that the voice should be able to do. It should be able to do legato, staccato, coloratura, messa di voce, which is crescendo diminuendo, and articulation. And that is like your consonants and stuff. And consonants can be very good at sparking acoustics. We'll get into that too. Then alongside that, you want to make sure you have a healthy range and tessitura appropriate for your age. And it means your, not in general the age, it's your age. I've lost most of my high notes. I opted not to take hormones. Had I taken hormones, maybe I would have kept a few. Also, your vocal color and volume are very important. And how you can sustain, how long you can sustain the voice is very important as well. And then we're going to do some more things that I just want to throw out here. Creaking is something that's very healthy. And especially for older voices, I creak a lot, and that's making a sound going, ah. And then there's the inner smile, pharyngeal stretch. We're going to get back and do a little bit of this together. Onset, I talked about the 5 textures of singing, and we'll do some exercises that do that. Onset exercises, it really matters how your note comes on. There's 3 ways that you can put a note on. 4. You can do one with a consonant, or you can go ha with an H, or you can do ah with a glottal, or you can do it really well. Ah. Then how can you relax your throat? Throwing this out there. If you go, you're going to relax your throat. So if you're feeling during a rehearsal that you're getting kind of tensed up and you need to just stop for a second, just doing that is going to help you. And this is good for any age. There's also a wolf tone, or that's a little bit of the creaking too, but you could also go, and that lowers the larynx into a more relaxed position. Some more little things I wanted. Here's semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. Humming. The NG is interesting. I talk about, and z, v, lip trills. Straw that I mentioned. Raspberries is when you put your tongue on your bottom lip and go, and then you can also put a straw in water and in that. Finally, these are a couple of my favorite exercises, and what I really love about these, they snag your resonance, and if you go bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi boo, bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi boo, the act of just going boo, boo, you get optimal resonance, and that's because you're stopping right at the lips. Then I like giggity 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 goo. And for that, you feel your tongue against the back of the throat at the top. So if you just go gig 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 giggity 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 goo, then finally going digga 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 doo goo, and putting the D, your tongue right at the tip of your alveolar ridge is where it is. Digga 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 goo. Oh, I digga 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 dee. I wrote that wrong. So those are just some things. So I'm just going to go real quickly and just remind us, it's the interplay of all these things that are just the miracle of the human voice. Every one of them changes. Respiration changes as far as how many alveoli we have, how many branches have grown in our lungs, the muscles around those that have the ability to get the breath out, even the hardness of our ribs, of our bones, bony ribs, or they're not so bony yet. So that makes a big difference in how the air can travel. The vibration itself, perhaps the larynx is kind of soft as a child, as a baby in particular, and it gradually hardens up. And when it gets enough hardness to it, that tells you what you can do vocally. There's a reason you can't sing the hardest arias in the world at the age of 18 and definitely 16. There's a reason that you wait for certain things until there's enough of the solid structure of the laryngeal structure, and also within the layers of the vocal folds themselves, since they've gone through such evolution over time. And then finally, when you get to the resonance, you know that the inside, the vocal tract changes so much. And in men, it changes for a longer period of time too, with the lengthening of the throat and with the widening of it as well. And in females, it doesn't change as much, but it still does. And it still merits our talking about it a lot. So I hope that that is something that can stick with you all. And I'd be in favor of any questions or thoughts from from Jerry and from Penny. Is there anything you want to ask about?
Karen, I have a question. So as we age, do we need to spend more time vocalizing and exercising than maybe we perhaps did when we were younger? Is there a magic amount of time daily that we need to spend on exercising the voice to keep it in good shape?
Here's what I see. I have trouble just practicing every day. I need something to practice for. So having a group like this group you have a built-in, somebody encouraging you to sing a bit and sing together. But yeah, you do need to sing a bit. It's just like going to the gym. I hear, because I don't tend to do this, but 5 times a week is kind of what's needed, no less than 20 minutes. And that's just to maintain. Sometimes if you are in it can happen that for instance, if you have some damage on your cords, you're going to have to do it very incrementally. But it's better to split up your practicing too, not to do it all in one. I had a girl, she's 18, she's a first year at Northwestern, and she started sounding tired, and I'm going, how long are you practicing? And a couple hours a day. And said, stop, no, because that means she's practicing for 2 solid hours. I'd rather see 20, 30, 10, something like that. But definitely you have to use it or lose it, that's for sure. What I see is people get older, like me, and even I'd say from the age of 48 on, I'm just picking that out of the air, we just tend not to want to. And we just tend to think, well, we know all about it. Fact of the matter is, I know when I actually have to sing a lot, and I sing a lot better. And when I don't, my vibrato is getting slower and slower and slower. You naturally, as an older person, I'm talking about myself, you start to lose the shimmer on the top of the voice. It can become more difficult to do coloratura, but it's really worth the effort to try. You're better for the effort, and you always have to remember that. It's really, because you go most of your life, and for men, you mature later, so you can go that long till, let's say, I hear great singing going on in men 68, 69, 70. I can still hear it. I don't hear a lot of great singing going on in women that old. And I'm sorry, ladies, that's just the way it is. We have other wonderful things about us. And I still love to sing, and my voice still sounds darn good if you ask me. But I have to live within my limits. But guess what? We always had to live within our limits. So we need to figure out what's best for us. Jerry, have you got something?
Well, I'm afraid to bring this up because you could probably talk for an hour about it, but I was really fascinated and jotted down a phrase that you said, and I just wondered if you might expand on it for just a minute.
Okay.
And it was strategy for breath pressure.
Yeah. So children have a different strategy from adults. Their vocal folds are not as developed. Their muscles are not as strong. They can't pressure out as far, but their vocal folds are just right for exactly the way they do it. And so when they just take a breath and go, and it comes out clearly. For adults, sometimes we try, and I see this going through colleges and stuff, maybe an 18-year-old is still singing kind of sweet and soft, but yet they have gone through total change. And in the young guys, 18 to 22, probably around 21 in guys, I start noticing that their shirts are getting too tight from around the neck because their neck has gotten thicker. And all of a sudden, I start being able to tell if they're a baritone or a tenor. And so it's very age related, but they have to be taught. They have to be remapped to understand that the breath strategy, instead of being, is going to be, and you have to lead them to where those muscles are. And some people never get remapped through their whole lives. And some people do it instinctively well, and others just stay a little bit hollow or do something compensatory. So resistance is what adults have to do, not just blow. And there's a lot of blowers, and they think they're not causing tension? Frankly, they are. You know, the paradox is that when you do the resistance way of doing it, your vocal folds barely come together. When you do the blow kind of thing, and they're not necessarily even coming together evenly the way they're supposed to. And so that is a big thing. That's one reason that doing is really good. If everybody takes your knuckles, do that right now with me, and put them in the soft part under your ribs on the sides, and just go. What you feel there is you're feeling the muscles inside contract. Let's say it. It's contract. Some people like to say, just hold it out, you know, leave it out, just, you know, and no, they're contracting. Let's know. And some of that I think is really good to do.
Karen, do you address that in your book?
I do. Yep. It's a big deal.
It sure is. I mean, the whole idea of resistance with free-flowing air, yeah.
And you've got to find the right balance. You know, in the end, you want it to be kind of like this. Not like that, you know, but hey, like a really good firm trampoline, you know, that it can do that on. And it's got to be the air pressure is created from underneath, you know, and it's got to meet the folds just right. And then we get into this whole thing about the epilarynx and blooming into the rest of it, but that's very complicated. So
thank you.
Great. So now shall we go to our brave souls? And we're going to start with Becky. Hey, Becky. So, Becky, I want you to do this. I want you to do the, we're going to go, giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo. Diggity, 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 doo. Diggity, 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 doo. It's G-I-G-G.
Oh, G. I was hearing D. Sorry.
Gig. Say gig.
Gig.
Okay, now go gig, 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 gig.
Gig, 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 gig.
You feel that? And everybody can do that at home on your own with us. Go gig, 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 gig.
Gig, 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 gig.
Good. And so if you go gig, 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 you don't get sound, do you? So take your knuckles and put them down here and go gig, 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 gig.
Gig, 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 gig.
Good. And now you've got to just aim it a little bit better back there. Gig, 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 gig.
Gig, 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 gig.
Yeah, and you can tell a little bit of you wants to go, ah. And you think, so we're going to keep our mouth shut. Gig, 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 and see how long you can do it, okay? Great. Now go. Giggity, 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 goo.
Giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo.
You got better in just 3 exercises, didn't you? So you understand, you felt your tongue hit up against the top of your mouth, didn't you? So I'm going to show you something here in just a second. You'll all be able to see this too. So this is one of my favorite apps. It's called Sounds of Speech. And I'm going to go to my G here so you can see a gig. And this is crazy, but it really helps the singer. And it'll help each of you too. So there, can you see that, everybody? Alrighty, now watch the tongue, and you see the green thing in the back, that's your velum, and watch what happens.
Ga. Ga. Ga.
Isn't that interesting?
Ga. Ga. Ga.
Now try this again. Giggity, 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 goo.
Giggity, 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 goo.
Now let's make it giggity, gaggity, giggity, gaggity, goo. Giggity, gaggity, giggity, gaggity, goo.
Giggity, 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 goo.
You're getting better.
Giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo.
what Becky has done, amazing, just fantastic. You could just do this exercise for the next week and it would just be amazing. There's the 5-day rule and the 6-week rule. So today was the first time Becky's ever done this. Okay, and she made some huge changes. First of all, she articulated her tongue a little differently, and notice after she saw the picture, it was even better, wasn't it? And it made more sense to her because we can't think in there so well. Okay, and she also started using her breath pressure more. She let those muscles just stay connected the whole time rather than giggity, giggity, giggity. That's not what we're doing. We're going giggity, 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 goo. Now, Becky, I want you to notice how it feels kind of around here, how you sense that. Giggity, 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 goo.
Giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo. Giggity, 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 goo.
It's almost like you're singing backwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're aiming in the back and everybody, but you're singing back. Back is bad. No, it's not. You know, where we have to think as singers is sometimes back there so that it comes out bright and ringing and forward. Okay? And then again go. And she has great freedom in her throat then too. So when you have great resonance, you start getting great freedom as well. Way up there, don't you, with your tongue? Great, great. That was wonderful. So yay for Becky. Thank you so much. Take that home and practice it and see what it gets for you.
I am at home practicing.
Yeah, take it all. It's great.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to Dana. Thanks, Becky. You were wonderful. Great. All right, Dana. So now for you, let's go. We're going to go. And just put the D on the first one. So it's D-O-A-O-A, okay?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
And so you're getting, this is great. This is great. This is one reason we should keep singing. Your brain is doing a lot of work too, isn't it? I mean, it's feeding off, what is my vowel? What is the order? What is the harmony that's going with that in the background? You know, so much. Do that once more. D-O-A-O-A. Oh, I like that one a lot. Now we're going to go up and do your falsetto just a little bit. Do you do your falsetto ever?
Sure, it's ugly.
Yeah, well, let's see. Let's see. We're going to go. But I want it an octave higher than that, okay?
Okay.
That's it. One more. Now go back down and go day.
good.
So Dana, after we did the falsetto, did the whole voice feel better?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did. And so this is something that you can take with you too. And I started on F above middle C. And I just did 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, and you made it real hollow. And I know for the rest of you, you probably heard the electronics cut out. And that's probably because he didn't have his original sound on, the Zoom thing. And, you know, if he was my student, we'd have taken time and figured that out. But nonetheless, he did it, and I could tell he did it. And coming back then, he stretched his vocal folds. That's a really lucky thing for males, that they can do that. And then he can go down really, really low, and it sounds all the richer. Let's do it once more, and I'm going to change your exercise to bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi. Just try that once first.
Bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity boo.
And make sure it's bibbidi bobbidi boo, okay?
Bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity boo.
Now go boo,
Boo.
bib 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 bib.
Bip, 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 bip.
So that is also a semi-occlusive thing that can spark overtones. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Do that. Go bibbidi bobbidi boo.
Bippity boppity boo.
There you go. That's kind of fun to do too. So now we're going to do that sequence once more. Falsetto, and then we're going to go down to bibbidi bobbidi boo, and see if you can feel sort of a spark of acoustic going wow back there. Ooh. Bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi boo.
Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo.
Okay, let's go up a little bit with it. Bibbidi.
Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo.
Why don't you take your knuckles and put them here and go boo,
Boo.
go boo,
Boo.
bibbidi.
Bippity.
Did you feel those muscles engage?
Well, I was just too worried about what I was doing with my mouth.
Okay, so,
Boo. Yeah, I can feel a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, we want to just say, hey, Karen, quit it.
Hey, Karen, quit it. Yeah, that works.
There, you have to get a little mad at me. It helps. I can handle it. Bibbidi bobbidi. Here we go.
Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo. Bippity boppity bippity boppity boo.
Great. Okay, Dana. Now we're going to go to, thank you so much, Dana. Yay. Great job. We're going to go to Sarah. And I am concerned that I might run over a little bit here. I think I saw that Ken is here also. So just letting you know. Okay, so we've got Sarah, and then we're going to do Ken after that. Sarah, let's go. D, 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 And again, we're hearing that she's not on original sound, so it kind of cuts out a bit, but she's singing, and I know that. So, okay, so now you take your hands. This is just going to be for everybody. And it is for me, you know, it is for the great singers at the Met. You will see them checking this stuff a lot. So, D, so we're going to go again. D.
D. D.
Now, here's a hint about the E vowel. On the E vowel, here's your tongue, and here's your bottom teeth. And this part up here is called the dorsum, and the sides of it should touch your back molars or behind it. That's a little further back and a little further up than you were thinking. And so let's try that again. D. Did that feel more efficient?
Yes.
Yeah, so all of you should try that at home too, because it's pretty cool how much it does. Now, here's a cool fact. When you're singing an E vowel, you're actually singing two vowels at one time. So if I go E, and my tongue is up there touching back there, and I cover my mouth, do you know what vowel you will get? Any idea, Sarah? I'll do it, okay?
Okay.
E, oo, e, oo, e, oo.
The oo.
Yeah, so in the back of your throat, there's an oo, which is pretty wild. So therefore, you get the brightness and you get the warmth all at one time with an E vowel. So knowing that, you can think back here a little more, going, that's not going E. E, it's long and tall and relaxed down. And see if you can think about that. And it's kind of like your mouth is back here instead of here. And you're singing behind you. So let's try that again. Ooh, that was richer, wasn't it? And a question for you is, do you feel as you go up that your muscles, these are your oblique muscles, do you feel that those engage more as you sing, or do they kind of give out on you?
They should be working harder for me.
Okay, are they working harder for you?
I don't know if I'm thinking about it that much.
Okay, now this time I want you to take your fists, and there you're gonna go, ugh! You're gonna go, ugh, and get mad at them, okay? Because then you're going to, getting mad makes you sing with more support, okay? So try it again, get vigorous. Yep. So that's what I'd want you to take home with you, is the idea of the E vowel having E here, oo in the back, and letting it a little more tiger-like with this kind of support. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet. Ken, I've heard you are a pretty good tenor.
It's all false.
I don't think so. So let's go. Well, first I just want to hear day.
Day. Day.
It's really pretty. So yours needs more oomph too, okay?
I I've never sung with headphones on before like this either, so it's just
Okay.
a little weird.
I want to put one ear on and
Yeah,
one.
I'll do that.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, this is wild. I know. Okay, now I want you to do it again. Take your finger, put your finger up like this. Now go. I want you to sing like that, okay?
All right.
Here we go.
Deo, 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 Deo.
And another rule for you is H's are illegal.
Yeah.
Okay? De-he-he. No, no, no. Because your vocal folds are going vibrate, 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 and then they go ah, vibrate, ah. Okay? So it's going to be clear the whole entire time. The finger, this one.
Deo, 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 Deo.
Now I want you to go. Right into it. You feel your body working hard?
Yeah.
That's great. It needs it and it wants it. Three more. Wonderful, Ken. What a voice. That's great. So thanks to all of our brave souls for doing this and letting us all share in their progress in a short amount of time. So Penny.
Yes, we have some questions that we're going to get to here quick before Jerry comes back in. Jan Malika asks, what is a good way to encourage people to work on notes that they think are too high for them? I work with a memory choir of people diagnosed with dementia. Music is really not written for 80-year-old sopranos, and we try to keep it to familiar music.
First of all, I think my father just passed away just not very shortly ago, and he had Alzheimer's. It was vascular Alzheimer's, and you need to make things accessible to them, and so that's a unique thing. And Dad couldn't really produce a lot because everything forgets what it is forgetting. But you've got to see where sometimes like men as they get older, their voices get higher, and women as they get older, their voices get lower. And so finding yes, familiarity, but also where are they comfortable singing? And it can vary from person to person. So when you're trying to do something all together, that can be a real challenge. But medium is always good. Somewhere C to C is probably going to be okay. And trying to push them higher if they want to, they can try it. But yeah, that's a hard question. There's not one answer.
Okay, a follow-up to that. As you grow older, any specific exercises you would recommend to keep the vibrato narrow?
I would recommend doing all those things that require resistance. Does, the straw does. Any of those are going to be good for that. Another thing, when I do the NG, that does something unique in that it brings this part of the vocal folds together, but it also brings this part together. And as we get older, so our vocal folds are 2/3 membrane and then 1/3 cartilage down here. And that needs to be drawn together too, and you're going to be better off for that. So is also a good thing. And otherwise, people have a little hole in their voice, and then they just blow harder thinking they're supporting, and they're not. So it's really finding what resistance you can, as we've talked about in the support idea.
Okay. And what exercises or thoughts do you share with your adult women to create a warm choral tone that matches each other? I have a gal that sings with a spread tone, and I can't get her to modify or listen to match tone quality.
Probably singing with probably singing too wide in a way, and so sometimes I tell them to sing taller than wide in that case. There's also, though, some people do need to get all the way back there, and that's changing. Even the musculature of older people is changing back there. It's not as supple as it was when you were 30, 40, even in your 50s part of the way. But that's doing pharyngeal stretches can be a good thing, and I know that doesn't seem like it has anything to do with it, but it does. So if we all just try this, put your hands like this here, and you're going to have the palm, the heel of your hand right here in the pec muscles. And first you go, and then you go. And you can see how my chest went up, but if their posture is starting to get weak too, they're not going to be able to get their palates up, because it takes that to do it. And you feel it all the way around. So some of it is you have to understand it and nurture it as you can. With that comes a warmer tone and more possibilities of everybody being able to, if everybody sings the same way, they're going to sing better, but some people are trying to accommodate things that aren't working for their voices anymore. Again, that's not an easy answer, but it is the best thing to do.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to turn it back over to Jerry for a little bit. And we'll take some more questions at the end as well. So keep sending them in. You mentioned the 5-day rule and the 6-week rule. Could you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, I find anything that you do for the first time, the first day, it's messy. And you tried it, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be me cooking something, which you don't want to see. But it could also be if you have never done bibbidi bobbidi bibbidi bobbidi boo. The first day, your mind is trying to figure it out and everything, and it's like a puzzle. And then day 2, you come at it, and it's a little better, but it's still kind of confusing. Skip a day then, because you need a day off, and then come back to it the 4th day. And there that'll be your 3rd day of practice, therefore. That's part of the 5-day rule, is you have to do it 5 out of 7 days. And you're going to find by day 4, you've got it. And day 5, you want to do it. Then over 6 weeks, it becomes an automatic kind of motor skill. That's how I've seen it. And that's the same thing when you're learning, if you go to the gym and you're working out and finding out I need to correct this and that, in the way that I'm walking or running or jogging or something. It's the same thing. It's awkward at first, but it becomes a better controlled thing then, better coordinated.
Okay, we've got lots more questions, but we're going to have Jerry come back in now and talk a little bit about voices of experience. And then we'll get back to questions.
Well, I just, when I heard what Karen was going to talk about, I thought I'll talk about something else in terms of what Voices of Experience is kind of focusing on, because we do have, it's a very interesting process. 10 years ago, when Voices of Experience began, it simply began as wanting to pay attention to people of all ages. There's always been classes and opportunities, especially for babies in Suzuki and so forth. But, past community choirs, then we don't have places for seniors specifically to go. So Karen, I hope, knows Jonathan Miller, my friend who directs some senior choirs in the Chicagoland area. And I compare notes with him, and I think there are several things that I would just mention that kind of we take into consideration. First of all, when I started the choir, I think I had all altos and baritones, and no tenors except 2 women. and about 3 women who were willing to sing soprano. So it was interesting because I spent so much time in the first year vocalizing and just proving to people that they had greater range than they thought, or it had rusted shut and they needed to find it again. And as a result, I started teaching voice classes at McPhail, and then people were finding their voice again after not having sung for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think there's just really something to be said about regularly using the voice because it hasn't been, and getting into an environment where you can always leave either the 20 minutes or the 2-hour session feeling like something happened, feeling like you accomplished something, feeling better than when you had started. So as I work with these seniors, one of the biggest things I have to encourage them is to have core values that they can make little steps at. The problem we have as adults is we see the end product of what we want to have happen, and we're so eager to get there that sometimes we miss the incremental steps that we are making, and then we need to celebrate those and yeah, and build on them, if you will. So I guess what I'm simply saying is that there's a huge psychological thing about a senior coming in to sing with their peers, and there's this shyness that comes out as well. It's like, I don't want to put out too much sound, or I'm afraid to be wrong. And so there's a lot of encouragement that needs to be given. I work with a lot of people who were heads of their own companies and just significant in their life's work, and then they retire and their children have moved out and now they want to do something for themselves. And so bringing them and giving them opportunity to study music theory or anything as a 75-year-old person and get their voice and get their mind and get their fingers at the piano functioning, and it's just so good to feel that you still can practice and learn new skills or review old ones and bring it back. Now, Dan's word in his commentary was considerations that we have for repertoire and programming. I find that I can't go too high with the sopranos and I can't go too low with the basses. The ranges are simply limited. And so I do mostly high school literature, but not exclusively. For example, this year we're working on Brahms' Liebeslieder waltzes and the Vivaldi Gloria, along with some folk music, a piece by Eric Whitacre. I mean, I try to make it very, very diverse and to stretch folks' minds, but we do have to be careful of range limitations. The other challenge that they have is rhythm. Syncopation does not come easy unless you've done it for a while, and so feeling anything that's off the beat is a challenge. So I am always having to watch that, and anything with much coloratura that just well, we haven't gotten to that yet in 10 years. We might at some point, but so there's some things that we have to do. But normally, I would tell you, I just run the choir rehearsal the way I would run a choir rehearsal, because these people want to be challenged, and they want to get better, and they want to do well, and that's what we're trying to do. Even in this age of COVID, we're learning how to do it in this same format. So it's hard to conduct a choir when you can't hear what they're doing, but I'm imagining what they're doing and making up stuff to try to make them better musicians at home. And I pray that we're doing well. And I am excited for the opportunity to just give a little plug for what we're doing in our corner of the choral community here in town. Penny, I'll go back to you.
Great. If people want to know more about Voices of Experience, where can they go?
There is a section on it's officially it is a class that you take, and it is subsidized heavily, so it's not very expensive, but it is a class that you take at McPhail Center for Music. And I think the best, most complete way to go to find information about it is to go to the McPhail.org Center for Music, or look up their website and go specifically to music ensembles under Music for Life. It's McPhail Music for Life, and that's all kinds of classes plus our choir.
Excellent. Thank you. Karen, are you coming back in? We've got some more questions for you.
Great.
Several people have asked about the straw exercise. So can you explain what the straw exercise is and maybe demonstrate?
Sure.
You
So
saw
I
that.
got myself a couple straws when I read that question. So this is a metal straw that's reusable. You can clean it. And it has there's the diameter. Okay, and here is a tiny sippy straw. Okay, and so my preference for me is this one. And what this one does is you know how you need good posture on the outside? Well, you need good posture on the inside also. And so this makes everything just right. It also challenges your breath pressure. So what you do is you take it and you and the things I feel when I do that, I really feel my obliques do their job. I also know that my velum, remember that picture I showed you where we were doing g, g, g? I also know that my velum is really up. My larynx goes down a little bit more. I know I have very sufficient subglottal pressure, and that kind of teaches you how much we underestimate it. Then when if I go, and I'm putting my hand here to make sure that there's air coming out, because I could also just hum. And that's not it. Then when I come back to sing, it's made everything so perfect. It's made the vocal folds barely touch together. So I often will have them go, and even I was better then when I did that. It was ringy and clear and efficient. It just felt right. It felt effortless here, yet it was more bang for the buck. And so somebody had written here wondering what should you do for children and adolescents, girls for breathiness. I wouldn't use a straw this small. I might use this straw instead, which is, it's not like the great big one that you get at McDonald's, okay? And do things that slide up and down. That would be a big help. And can I go on, because there's somebody else wanted to know about the buzzing card. So it's my card, anybody? And this is called the buzzing card. These are good for everybody, children, adults, young, old. And what you want to do is you're going to kind of go, and your stream of air is going to hit the buzz. And I'm just about touching my lips with it. And again, what I see in students, when they go, then they come and sing, their voices are spot on. And they're going, it's a miracle. Because once again, it did all sorts of good things for you. Then I thought I'd show you one other concept that's really good. And this is using, going like that with something. So just if you're singing something, and I don't quite let it go to that, and another thing to do if you don't have those is take your hands and go, whoa, don't come any closer. And that is stolen from Ken Bozeman, who's a really great pedagogue. He used to be at Lawrence University. But it would be just like that. And it makes the ribs stay out more. We really underestimate how important that is to keep those ribs out. And back, using my upper back more, So I'm like a sumo wrestler. Okay, what else, Penny?
Well, we have a couple altos that are asking some questions. One asks, what can altos do to keep their voices lighter? And then Rosalie asks, I noticed that as I get older, if I go into the chest voice as a second alto, I have to be careful not to get that raunchy sound and not pushing it. I also notice that I have to concentrate on staying on pitch to the very end of the phrase, singing low. It is not that way singing higher. Is it possible the voice can narrow at the bottom of the range as one gets older?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really don't like it when my conductor at church tells people to, for an alto to sing lighter, and then shames them for their chestiness or something like that. You really have to most people don't practice much, so they're not going to keep their voice in optimal shape. That's me included, but that's the only way to really take care of those things. Nurture is the way it's going to keep some pliability. You want your vocal folds to be able to stretch, not to just be smaller like a rubber band and thick. And that's kind of what happens. So if you want to keep the lightness, really what you really want to keep is the flexibility of those vocal folds being able to stretch. And that's going to be like doing doing those kinds of things, or sirens or something. But frankly, I have what's called a hormonal ceiling. I get up there and things just stop. I used to have a high C that was to die for, and I could vocalize up to a high F. And it's gone down, and I haven't had hormones since I was 42. And so my voice has gone down, and my voice cramps when I go up there. So I need to stay in my area where I'm comfortable, which is pretty much E flat down. And if I have to sing up here very long, I'm not very happy with it. So that is just the way it is. And if you can isolate your head voice and do it, more than likely you're probably going to feel really high larynxy and not relaxed in your throat. So I think I would go for better, rather than that, I would go for vocal optimization, or, see if you can make things a little more fluid vocally. More than likely, you're probably not supporting enough too. That is a typical thing for us altos as we get older. And bringing that head voice down gets weaker. But I would first blame some support. So I do the straw like mad. And here's one other thing I would do. I would creak. So I would do the wow. Dee. It reminds the vocal folds how to come together a little bit. And then it remembers just enough when you go back to sing. And that's what the straw does. That's what the card does. It remembers just enough, and it makes singing better. So you do have tools.
Excellent. Timothy asks, what might be some causes in the loss of falsetto in an otherwise healthy voice? And what might you recommend to fix that?
I'd have to hear the person to analyze that. So Daniel, you want to answer that?
I think he's actually just clearing out the question.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, gotcha. I would have to hear the person and see what's going on. If I hear any interruptions on the chords or anything like that, I would probably just try it for a while. There are some people who, tenors sometimes don't have a falsetto, and sometimes as you get older, your voice is getting higher. And so for a man anyway, so you might not have the falsetto the way it did before.
Okay. Any favorite breathing exercises? What is a good exercise to improve breath support for sustaining longer phrases?
Well, I think there again, you go back to the straw and the card, and the actually also to put your hands here like we did before, and just take a big breath. Because keeping out is a big job, and it's not just here, and it's not just your back, it's also here. It's a big job. And when you're not able to sustain those things, then you're going to have a harder time. So it is okay to go and then feel yourself like a strong, like bull kind of sumo wrestler, and then try to sing like that a little bit more. And you don't have to do everything a lot, you can take a hint of what I've said. I teach hard and hope you take just enough what's needed. But if you're the one who really feels like they need that, you might try it for a week and see if that kind of is enough.
How do sinus infections affect the older singer?
I think the same way any singer. Sinus infections means everything up here is inflamed, and that is probably producing phlegm that is too thick. We go through about 1.5 liters of phlegm a day, but it's supposed to be watery enough that it goes through you. It goes, from here on down, and it soaks up everything there. So that's it. Anybody who's got thick phlegm from allergies and that's what goes into an infection. The best thing to do is to avoid getting a sinus infection, because then you might have to take antibiotics, and we'd rather not do that. So for that, I recommend doing the, what is this stuff? Mucinex kind of thing, that guaifenesin, that can thin the phlegm. If you need to do that, do these things under doctor's care, of course. And plenty of water is important. And you can't take the guaifenesin without the water. It needs to be activated by that. I would also maybe do a saline solution nasal rinse or a neti pot or something. But I would try to avoid it, and I have to take, my sinuses are terrible. And I take Flonase, and sometimes I take another spray that is an antihistamine, a topical antihistamine. So I think a lot of times that's the problem more than it was getting a sinus infection. It's, do you have allergies? Did you have a cold? Are the seasons changing? What could you have done to prevent it?
So another question from Jonathan, how there are some girls that have a mature voice and they're singing mature songs. Is it good for them?
That's debatable, and there's not very many of them that I hear, and I feel like they're doing it. I think it's impressive to the untrained, and my ears painfully trained, to hear compensatory type things that may not work for them later in their lives. There's also a young man, Axel Rutfin, and he's Norwegian, and he sang as a little boy, and his voice is just glorious if you go back and hear it. And now he's 16, but I've gotten to know his voice teacher a little bit, and we brought him over from Nats when he was going through puberty. And so the voice was doing a little bit of the high stuff, but more now going into the baritone range. And even there, you've got to follow the progress of the voice. And I know there's some really great folks who understand that, the pubescent voice. And for instance, I'm going to guys right now, but I'll get back to girls. But in guys, they could need to change parts, in 2 weeks' time, or overnight for that matter. And we should be professionals that can accommodate that. I certainly can do that in a voice lesson. For young girls to sing overly mature in any way and in any style, they might, their chords are their vocal folds are pretty supple. They can heal themselves pretty well when they're younger, especially if it's before that third layer of epithelium comes over the vocal folds. But there is possibilities of people starting compensatory things, and I can think of one student who did that. Was really, really musical and kind of sang a little bit nasal, and then came to school and had huge problems, and they had gone unnoticed and masked by great musicianship. And it turned out that she had a polyp on one chord and a node on the other, a compensatory node on the other one. And it was getting the habits that caused that, because really squeezed the throat. And yeah, I would rather have them be kind of normal, and enjoy life. And but some people see a lot of money in that, and they're cute and they like to be on stage, and we don't know how those people are going to grow up and how they're going to be later. We just don't know.
Right. Well, we're going to take one more question, and then I'll have a couple comments before I throw it back to Dan to close us up. But The last questions are about aging female voices, or actually male or female. One question was, why were women once told their best voice is over after 40? And what advice do you have to singers about adjusting expectations as a soloist as we age?
I've had to change what repertoire I do. I mean, and nowadays I don't have enough breath left to do it all either, because there's a thing called the amount of air that you maintain in your lungs. I forget what it's called, and I'm sure there's doctors or something wonderful in here and going, bleh. But anyway, the amount of breath that you retain grows, so you actually have less air to have. So let's just say here's your whole tank of air that you can have, and everybody has. And when you're younger, you can go down to here. Now for me, I can go to about here. So I don't have as much air access to me. And I asked my brother, and he is a doctor, and I said, is there anything I can do about that? He goes, not really. You can just use it better. And so that is one thing that after you get, I don't know, the 40 thing, I think in the late 40s, that's when I see women's voices start to sound older. Residual volume. Thank you, Peter. That's it. And when I hear women at 47, 48, 49, I can tell they might be perimenopausal, but they're approaching it. And voices still age, even if they haven't gone through menopause. We just keep aging. Our muscles, even, the muscles that were so beautifully formed, start spindling off and don't have the same texture that they used to have. So why were women once told their best voice is over after 40? Well, we have to learn to like sounds of all ages. And when I've heard Maureen Forrester at the age of 72, she was singing some wonderful French songs, and I hear the age in it. Okay, well, what if we liked that? Maybe that's up to the beholder. And I loved what she was doing artistically, and I loved her voice. She did need to breathe more, and I could hear her breathe. But I heard the beauty and wisdom in that voice. So I think it's in the eyes of the beholder. We didn't have, this is really the first century that we're having women live so long and insisting on singing as well. And so I think a lot of times, I'm reading all these books by Ken Follett, like women died at childbirth, and not many of them made it to menopause, so it wasn't an issue. But now we live way past it, and in the way the world has to learn to not have such ageism about it too. So.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have any final comments? And I'll also invite Jerry to come back in and make some final comments if you'd like.
I think this is a great organization that you have, and thanks to everybody who's been a part of that, including our brave souls who sang for us today. Really appreciate all that you contributed and what everybody got to see you do. Just thank you for having me. I so believe in all of this, so believe in what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Karen. Jerry?
I will simply say thank you so much to Karen. I learned a lot, and you were very easy you make it very accessible. So thank you so much for packing so much into this short period of time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Excellent. And then just to remind our participants, we have your email, so we will email out the resources that Karen referenced in her session tonight. We will also be posting the recording of the session. If you want to monitor our Facebook page, Singers in Accord Choral Ensemble, it should be posted there as well. So now I'll just turn it back over to Dan to wrap up.
Thank you, Penny. And thank you so much, Karen, for a fabulous, fascinating evening. And Jerry, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experience with us. Just a reminder to everybody that on November 17th, we will welcome Sigrid Johnson to the Conversations in Accord webinar. And we'll have a fascinating evening with Sigrid as well. As always, we appreciate your support of Singers in Accord. You can go to our website and make a donation if you feel so inclined. Thank you again for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.